Thomas Crown was a caper movie. It was about the man, and it was all about how clever he was as a thief. And I told the studio the day they hired me that I wanted to make it a love story, that I thought it was a lot more interesting as a love story. There's 30 pages at the end where he steals the last painting, and it was just more top-cappy junk, hanging from the ceiling and outwitting the laser alarms and junk like that. And I just seen it all. I didn't care to repeat it. So I took the whole 30 pages, and in effect, I boiled it down to one cop says to the other, "How the hell did he do that?" And the other cop goes, and that was it. And the audience is perfectly happy with that answer, because, well, I've been right that the audience really didn't give a shit about all that "how did he steal it" shit. And I got away with it. It worked.
I don't really give a shit.
You're a good man.
It just seemed to me that what was interesting about it was they were two 35 to 40-year-old people who were really tough and really cynical. And they were far too cynical to think they were ever going to fall in love. And I thought that would be that would be neat. I mean, the original Thomas Crown Affair faced the same issue, and I thought they solved it poorly, because he disappears and they don't get together. It's a tragic ending. And I wanted to make it with a good ending, where the two of them do get together.
Do you want to dance? Or do you want to dance?
Casting Renee was an interesting thing, because the studio thought, oh, you have to get a very hard woman. They had wanted to get, I shouldn't give her name, but there's this very hard lady who grew up in South Africa, and the studio wanted her for the part. And I went and met her, and she scared the fuck out of me. She was so hard. And I called the studio and said, look, I just spent half an hour with the hardest lady I've ever met in my life. I don't think you want to make your movie with her. It was hard to get Renee to act both tough and still charming and feminine, because most women think when they're going to be tough, they have to be angry. What you have to do is you cast for the end of the movie. And if at the end of the movie it turns out that the woman or the man, whatever, has a heart of gold, you have to get a person who actually has a heart of gold. And you can get them to act tough, but you can't take a tough person and convince the audience that they have a heart of gold, because they won't believe it. So what I did was, I got a madam from an S&M whorehouse to teach her. Not how to do S&M, but how to be charming and sexual and yet not afraid of a man. How to be in charge, but not be angry. Renee could have been a little tougher, but the audience, she worked. And the audience liked her. And there was a difficult thing, because Pierce was the producer. And I had to say to him, this movie's actually about her, you know. You are the mountain. You don't change. You are this extraordinary person, and she is confronted with you, and she has to figure it out. Okay? The movie's about her. And Pierce was had a big enough heart, and was smart enough. A lot of actors aren't, but he was smart enough that he could deal with that.
To the left. To the left. Pick up a thermal coming over the hill. Just like a hawk.
I had the same problem. I did a movie with Sean Connery. It's called Medicine Man. And, you know, I'm half Irish, so I'm really used to, there was a thing John Ford did in several movies. John Wayne's wife was Maureen O'Hara. And Maureen O'Hara scared every man in the village half to death. The only man in the whole town who could handle her was John Wayne. He's the only man who was big enough to handle that woman because she was too scary, right? And conversely, he was the only man in the town that she thought was big enough to be interesting. So they made a wonderful love story, right? Over and over. He made the same movie 2 or 3 times. Or the same, he actually made the same movie 2 or 3 times. But he made that character relationship several times. And I wanted to do it for Medicine. And I got Lena Olin. Do you know who she is? She's a Swedish actress who was, I don't know, she got an Academy Award about then. She was very big then. And she was as close as there was in the world at that time, Katharine Hepburn. She was strong, and she was very smart, and very articulate, and beautiful, and very verbal. And I wanted her to play the doctor. And it was supposed to be, you know, Lion in Winter or Maureen O'Hara and John Wayne, the 2 biggest people in the town, going at each other. Yeah, you know, it's like African Queen. You know, Humphrey Bogart and, again, Katharine Hepburn. You know, a giant fight. It's a love story. You're watching lions make love, okay? Lions are really tough on each other. There's a lot of screaming and a lot of fangs and a lot of saliva flying everywhere, okay?
Mister, I've had it with you.
Okay, so are you happy?
And I got them together to have dinner together. And Sean had come through all the Bond movies. Bond movies are terribly misogynistic. It's, you know, they treat women like shit. And they always change the woman each time. And you know, they've only had one woman who could act, you know, Berenice Marlowe, who could really act. She was, God, she's good. And she's wonderful in that movie, in Skyfall. But the rest of it, you know, they would hire models and things, and they'd all keep changing them. And Sean came from that school, and he sort of learned, well, you know, you make sure that the woman can't steal the movie from you. And I just wasn't experienced enough. I wasn't old enough. I wasn't smart enough. Somehow, I couldn't take him, I couldn't convince him. I couldn't make him see that the only way the movie works is that you don't get the little woman who's gorgeous like in a Bond movie. You gotta get a woman who's as big as you are. You gotta get Sean Connery, the female, Sean Connery with breasts. I didn't know how to convince him, and I failed. Basic had a problem in that they changed the script right before I started shooting. I couldn't get out of the movie, so I had to make it. The producer didn't give a shit what the movie was. He just wanted the money. And they also threatened me that I couldn't tell. They got me to sell the movie to the studio, and I said, look, there's a problem in this script. I'll fix the problem, and then we'll make the script. But it was a thing like Picnic at Hanging Rock, which is a mystery that just plays with the techniques of building a mystery, but actually has no answer because it's fraud. It's all just mystery games. It's techniques. It's a sphinx with no secrets. And they wouldn't let me even tell the studio. They said if I told the studio what they'd done, they'd sue me, because the studio would have dropped the movie, would have not made the movie. And they said if I let the studio know what they were doing, they would sue me for all the money they lost.
Did you find the way through the eyes of calling?
No, all I could do was, because I wasn't allowed to speak to the studio. The only thing we could do is I talked to the line producer, and I decided we had to save some money. And we put $1 million aside out of the production. We hid it and kept it. So that when I was finally, after shooting, when I was allowed to speak to the studio, I said, I have good news and I have bad news. I wasn't allowed to fix the script. So you still have that script that you turned down that you didn't like. But I have saved $1 million and I have it hidden so that to pay for shooting an ending on the movie, which is the best I could do. I had to explain to them that I wasn't allowed to speak to them, and because these were actually people I'd worked with before and respected and liked. I wasn't allowed to talk to them. So that was the best. It was the best moral compromise we could come up with. So then we went back and we put in an ending. It's not a particularly good one, but it's an ending. And it was just a terrible, terrible experience, and I didn't want to work again after that for a long time. I would like to work now, but I will not work for dishonest producers, and I won't work for stupid, inexperienced studio heads.
This is about quality of life. If you lose enough times, what you are is a loser.
I have to think about that.
By the time you get good enough to actually make a decent movie, you've devoted a good deal of the strength of your life to acquiring those skills. It's not 10,000 hours, it's at least 20. And consequently, good movies, are like a religion. They are the most important and most sacred things in your life. And to deal with people who don't give a shit what it is, and don't give a shit if the movie is good or not, they're just after the money. It's like that famous Goebbels line, I hear the word culture, I want to reach for my pistol. Well, when I meet men like that, I want to kill them.
Okay, so now that I know all this, what happens? I get a needle in my arm and wake up tomorrow morning with no memory?
Well, we actually thought you handled yourself quite well in this situation. We were going to offer you a job.
I have 4 scripts that I have finished. Many, 2 of them I'd been working on for 30 years. So, I mean, they were ideas that I had back in the 1990s, and I didn't have time to make them. And really, I'm only interested in scripts that I've written, or at least rewritten. I rewrote all of the scripts for every movie I've ever made. And I've never asked for credit because I didn't face the blank page. The writer did. So he should get the credit. And I think I have strength enough to do 4 movies before I get too damned old. Robert Altman was, he was working until he was 86, and he had a changed heart. He didn't, they kept it secret that he had a heart transplant all that time. And he was just cranking out movies every year. I'm not going to try to do that. But I hope I can get the 4 of them done. We'll see.